There's a topic that I've always wanted to talk about, and I'm not even quite sure how to address it, but some trees are much more difficult to prune, and the way the dead wood or the way the branches grow is really difficult to deal with. Some trees are really easy to prune. You know, if I was going to talk about some of the easier trees, I would say liquid ambers. I find those fairly clean. Pistachio, those are fairly clean. A lot of ash trees, unless they're really irregularly long trees. But this California pepper, Shyness mole, this tree is just inundated with dead. There's so much dead inside here. I've been working on it for about an hour and a half already, and it's not even a big tree. But everywhere I look, it's just so much congestion, so much dead. I started by taking a few of the low limbs off completely. They were hanging down way too low. And whenever you try to tackle a job like this, you try to get rid of the few big cuts first. Then you concentrate with your handsaw and your hand pruners and you just go for it. So I've still got about another, gosh, probably another hour on this tree. Which brings me to the way that you bid some of these trees. You know, I've got $2.55 on this tree, and we had a pistachio over there that was also $2.55. The pistachio took about a half an hour. This one's going to take about 2.5 hours. So, you know, you got to really think about it. But, you know, could I get $600 or $500 to prune this tree? Well, it's not big enough to warrant that kind of a price structure. So I don't know where you guys live, but we have so many species of trees here in California. You know, we probably deal with, you know, several hundred different varieties of tree, and you get to know them pretty well. You know, some of them are just, give you a little bit of a tour of the trees here. This is a camphor tree, Cinnamonium camphorum, and there's a few different cultivars of camphor that I've heard about. This is the common one. I'm not exactly sure which cultivar you would call this, but you can see we've taken all the dead wood out of it and opened it all up, and it makes for a very attractive tree, you know, and the people really enjoy these trees. But we keep the canopy as full as we possibly can. We don't overly strip them out, but these trees naturally thin themselves out as they go. The inside foliage dies back. So there's still a little bit of dead wood up there. We could nitpick this thing to death. So this is a flowering crabapple. And, you know, some of the problems with these trees are, you know, they're really sharp. They've got real thorny branches, really sharp bits, and everything crisscrosses. So figuring out which branches to cut to thin them out and make them look good without making big holes is a real challenge. And once again, this isn't a big tree, but you got to be careful when you're bidding these things and trying to make these decisions. Here's a Texas privet, and we pruned this one up. Everything was hanging down way too low, and there was a lot of dead, and a lot of the low limbs were just broken and cracked because this tree gets so heavily laden with the berries. And sometimes the pruning that you do on a tree is really more about the location. You know, there's two driveways here, and you know, everything that hangs on the tree or in the parking areas becomes a real nuisance. You know, not to mention this tree has been stripped out for the entirety of its lifetime. So we got up there and opened it up, took out more dead wood, lightened it up a bit all the way around, and you can see there aren't any fresh cuts down low. So this was from years ago. There's old dead stubs and such. A couple of squirrels' nests up there, one over there. There's a tree that's not doing so well. This one should be removed. This is a holly oak. There's a Chinese pistache, Pistachio chinensis. And this tree is clearly going to get much too large for this area, so we did a little bit of tipping back. It's also got a lot of seed berries on there. They turn bright red. They're kind of pretty, but we spent more time on this one just opening it up a bit. You know, not excessively stripping it out, but you know, you want to keep it clean, get all the dead wood out of there. that can be done to in excess as well. You know, you got to be careful not to overdo it when you prune out the inside of a tree. And a lot of you will remember the split pistache video that I've put up a couple of times. I started a year ago when I bolted it back together, and then a couple months ago when we pruned it, I think it was March that we pruned it, and it was just starting to leaf out, and it's really bushed out nicely. But let's go take a look at that split. Certainly not getting any better. The split was about the same. But you can see how much growth has come on in 1 year's time. You can see that that washer right there was flush with the surface. I didn't dig it out, so it's put on, about an inch of trunk earth. And in just a few years' time, both of these are going to be completely encapsulated, which will be a surprise for some poor guy in the future that has to cut this tree down. And off in the distance over in that school over there, you can see 4 or 5 Canary Island pines, Pinus canariensis. And they are a long needle pine with great big pine cones. The pine cones are sometimes really dangerous on those trees. In our area, we probably have a dozen species of pine that are quite common. Some of them are highly susceptible to borers, both the western turpentine beetle and the Ips pine beetle, the sequoia pitch moth, and not to mention a few others, that is transmitting a disease. It's a pitch canker disease. These trees, this species of pine seems to be more resistant to the insect attacks than a lot of the other pines that we have in the area. There we go. Well, I told you I'd show you what it looked like when I finished. And there it is. This is the sort of thing that you could pick at and pick at and pick at. I could probably spend another 2 hours on this tree. But at some point you have to say, it's done. Well, this is kind of an overview of the kind of work that we do. You know, we do lots of complexes like this, townhome complexes. And it's kind of the bread and butter of our business. We also do a lot of residential and high-end. I'd say we're about 50-50. Half condo complexes and townhouses, and the other half residential. I used to do a lot of city work and a lot of commercial work, but I've kind of gotten away from that. They're real slow to pay. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy my YouTube channel, and please post a comment at the end of all this and let me know what kind of trees in your area that you find to be a real pain in the butt to trim, and tell me why. Thanks a lot.